Well, so far, the street has mostly brushed off the aerospace giant's struggles, with over 60% of analysts covering the company holding a buy rating on the stock. Our next guest is one of those analysts. We've got Bert Subin, who is the Stifel Senior Research Analyst. Bert, great to see you here with us this morning. First and foremost, let's just get broad stroke, your takeaway from this Boeing report.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me back, and I think you gave a pretty good synopsis there. The first quarter earnings, I think, were always going to be relatively unimportant. There was so much disruption in the first quarter. You had the cash compensation that's going to United, Alaska, and others. You're producing aircraft at a very, very low rate, and making a lot of changes to ultimately get your arms around quality. And so there were a lot of costs absorbed in the first quarter. Like you noted, free cash was a little better, so that was encouraging. I think that was probably the highlight. And I think part of that was BDS driven, so the defense business was better than expected. And BGS, which is the services and aftermarket business, was also quite a bit better than expected. And so that combo helped. The commercial airplane business, continues to struggle. But I think we heard some encouraging remarks from Dave Calhoun this morning. The company's still looking to draw down its inventory this year, which is good. They're still planning to acquire Spirit potentially this quarter, which is, I think, a positive. And they're sticking by their $10 billion free cash target in 26, which is surprising. But I think it, speaks to their confidence in the ability to right the ship. So certainly some investor skepticism there, but I think they're saying, a lot of the right things this morning.
Bert, you mentioned that the acquisition of Spirit Aerosystems you view as a positive. Why? What is it going to do to the business in the long term?
Yeah, I think people maybe think of it differently. If you're looking at this as a typical deal, where is this going to be accretive, or how much is this going to reduce capital intensity or things like that, you wouldn't like this deal. But the reality is, Boeing's number one issue has been sort of getting its arms around, quality in its supply chain, and Spirit is a huge part of that. And there have been quality lapses in recent years. And so by acquiring Spirit, you can better integrate, and to a degree, vertically integrate their supply chain and give the customers and the regulators greater confidence that you're going to produce the highest quality product every time. And so from that perspective, I think it's really important for reputation and for sort of showing, an actionable step toward improving the business. And so Spirit is not a small company, but relative to Boeing, it is pretty small, right? The enterprise value is somewhere circa 5-ish% of the total Boeing value. And so it's not something they couldn't digest. And I think, down the road, there could be positives for margin accretion, but that's certainly not the focus near term.
Bert, at what price is Boeing paying too much for Spirit Aerosystems? I mean, the stock rose for Spirit Aerosystems by about, 15% after the kind of rumor mill was running and the talks of the deal started to emerge there. But at what price are they paying too much?
It's a great question. I think there's a wide dispersion of people's expectations here. We've said $34. The stock was trading around 28 and change before the announcement. That would represent sort of north of 20% upside, which would seem like a reasonable premium considering a lot of the cash headwinds that Spirit has and a lot of the advances that's taken on from Boeing and Airbus. I think the reality is it's probably not going to be that simple because this would assume that Boeing just goes out and buys Spirit. And what it seems to be the case is that they're probably going to divest Airbus assets and perhaps some defense programs and then buy sort of the remaining piece. And so that creates a lot of complexity for assessing that. But if you're just looking at it on a total basis, we've sort of viewed 34 as reasonable, which, slightly ahead of where it is today.
Yeah, certainly. Trading right now at about $32.50 here per share. Just lastly, let's go to Paris, if you will, the Paris Air Show. If Boeing does not have a standout performance at this Paris Air Show, which is coming at about the end of the quarter in June, then what for the rest of the year? What does that signal for the outlook from your perspective?
So orders have been pretty good to start the year, right? I mean, the backlog is at record levels. They were able to book a big American order, the 787, I think is gaining a little bit of traction as well. So this summer we'll have Farnborough. Paris is every 2 years. So we'll have Farnborough in July. And I think that'll be an opportunity for Boeing to get out there, particularly if they're starting to improve or sort of communicate that improvement to customers, could be an opportunity for them to start selling more Maxes again, which has, been something that, we've seen little fits and starts, but, that would be an opportunity if they can show customers that, they're getting back on track, could be an opportunity to pull in some more orders, which would be important because you get the advances, the free cash, and then, you could sort of see the reputational concerns starting to ease.
Bert, you are right. It is in 2025. And guess what? I'm going to be updating my calendar after we hop off. Bert Subin, who's the Stifel Senior Research Analyst. Bert, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you.